Hello and welcome to 10 Things Beginners Need to Know About Star Trek Online. My name is Chris, also known as Rachel Garrett on the Star Trek Online forums, stuwiki.org and starbaseutc.com. In this video I'll show you what you need to know when you start playing Star Trek Online. I'll discuss some of the things that the tutorial will not teach you. And well, this video actually is a second edition of a video I made more than a year ago on YouTube. That actually was just a proof of concept when I played a bit with text-to-speech engines, and now I'll do a real video that is intended for new players, and this will be more like a playthrough that I'll comment, and as I play through the tutorial I'll talk about the game's mechanics and the user interface and some not so obvious stuff. So actually this won't be strictly 10 things, but a lot of detailed stuff. And I hope you bear with me. I won't edit this video too much, so you will have to live with some arms and arms and some pauses when I'm looking for some word that don't come to mind that easily. So this is the start screen of Star Trek Online. I think you will be able to figure out how you get a Perfect World account and how to download the game, so I'll skip that. Just one word of advice: although the game still allows you to subscribe with a monthly fee of 15 bucks, don't do that. Just play the free-to-play version, and if you want to spend some money, you will be able to do that in-game with microtransactions, and in my opinion and the opinion of many other players, it is much more rewarding, and you will get much more benefits from microtransactions than from your subscription. So with that out of the way, we'll start with a new Federation character. When you start a free-to-play account, this will be the only option available to you. In order to create a Klingon character, you will need to level up a Federation character to the level of 25 in order to be able to start with a Klingon character, and then a second character slot will be unlocked for you in order to create a Klingon character. So the first choice you have to make is which of these three classes do you want to play. There are three career options in Star Trek Online, and these are basically what you know as classes from other MMOs. The engineer is a tank in space. An engineering officer will have a lot of healing abilities. He'll be able to boost some of his energy levels, so recharges shields more quickly and fire phasers and energy weapons for a longer period of time. And on the ground he'll be a summoner who is able to create turrets and force fields and drones and stuff like that. And the science officer actually is the other way around. He's more like a controller and tank on the ground, and in space he has the fancy abilities to summon anomalies which will hold enemy ships, or he can summon holographic ships that will aid in combat. And also on the ground the science officer has the healing abilities which actually make him such a good tank. And then there's a tactical officer, which is a damage dealer on the ground and also in space. So for the purpose of this video I'll play an engineering officer, because that's the playstyle that I'm most comfortable with. So your second decision is as what species do you want to play. You can see here there are a lot of known races, and old players who were not there when free-to-play hit the servers will see that some of the races that were previously premium races from the C-Store have now been added to the game, and you can start playing these races just from the start. So Tellarites and Ragellians previously were locked. You couldn't play them unless you spent some money on the C-Store. And of course there's still the option to create an alien, an unknown life form, and I'll choose this one because then the character editor has the most options. You can customize all of these with sliders to change proportions and stuff like that, and skin color, but the alien of course has the most options, and so I'll go with that. The next options is to select exactly 4 traits for your character. And the game will select 4 traits for you, and because I want to optimize this a bit, I'll customize these. You don't have to do that. Warp Theorist is a good skill that everyone should have, in my opinion, because this will increase your power levels. This will give you a flat bonus, so your ship will be a bit faster, the shields will recharge quicker, and also you have more energy for your energy weapons, so you will do a bit more damage. So this is a great trait to have. And for an engineer, Techie of course is good, because this will allow the ship to heal much faster. Do not want to have stubborn. This is a nice skill, so you can't be debuffed as easily on the ground and can't be controlled that easily. But I think I'll go with Efficient Captain instead, so that when there's not much energy in a subsystem on my starship, then I'll get a bonus, and instead of Lucky, which will increase my chance for a critical hit on the ground, I'll take Soldier, which boosts my energy weapons. Okay, this is nothing too critical. In my opinion, you should choose passive traits. There are some traits that you will need to trigger. For example, Telekinetic is an activatable ground trait, so in order to use that you will need to fire this power using a shortcut from time to time if you want to benefit from that. And I like the passive traits more because, well, they work all the time and you don't need to worry about that you actively need to trigger them or stuff like that. One important info is that still after 2.5 years you are not allowed to change these by any means later in the game, but on the other hand these are not that important for your gameplay, so even if you select the wrong traits if you want, then this won't hinder you. You can have a look at stowiki.org. There is a page which has some recommended builds for the individual careers and also recommends some alien builds and some species specific builds, because some species have certain traits that you can only get from that species, like for example the nerve pinch is only available for Vulcans. So next we will enter a very elaborate character editor, and you can see here there are some presets that demonstrate what the engine can do. And of course you can click advanced and you'll get tons of sliders where you can manipulate your character, a lot of details of your character, and of course you can choose different body parts and this is fun, different skin patterns and color schemes and stuff like that. And you are not only limited to the head, but you can also modify the body, and this is quite fun. And last but not least, also you can customize the uniform and the colors. I don't want to spend too much time in this editor, so for the sake of this video I have prepared a character, and you can save these to the hard drive and you can also load them. So these are some presets I made, and I'll play as this guy. This is a Temerian, and you might know Temerians from the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Darmok. These are people that the Enterprise encounters which can only communicate using metaphors. And I want to name this guy Kiteo, and he'll serve on a starship called the USS Celtic. I think that's a good name. And what you should keep in mind here is that in this field you will enter a nickname or call sign of your character. So don't enter the full name. For example, if you have a character that's called Kara Thrace, for example, then it would be a good idea to enter Starbuck in here, because that's her nickname. And you would enter Kara Thrace down here in the formal name. And here's the example of Bones. So you would enter Bones here and Leonard McCoy down here. I don't know, has Leonard McCoy a middle name? I think he has, but I can't remember it. And this is how the game chooses how to address you in certain contexts. So an old friend might call you Kiteo, and this is also the name visible to other players, this nickname. And maybe if you get orders from a superior NPC, then he will use your formal name or pieces of your formal name. So for example, Captain McCoy. Well, in my case, the guy is only known as Kiteo and does not have a first, middle or last name. Another important thing, you cannot change this nickname. You can change your formal name anytime in game, and you can change your starship's name and also your biography, but you cannot change your nickname because that's your character identifier. You can change the name if you're willing to pay a microtransaction, but better to choose it carefully now at the beginning than to be sorry later on. And of course, for role-playing purposes, you can enter our biography, and of course you will be able to do much better here. So, now that we have created the character, we are ready to start playing, and we'll submit Kiteo's application to Starfleet. So, after the intro video where you get to learn a bit about the backstory of Star Trek Online, which plays in the year 2409, which is a generation after the events of Star Trek Nemesis and Voyager, you will be thrown into a combat situation. You'll spawn somewhere on your starship, and well, depending on which career you choose, you will end up in the sick bay, the weapons locker, or if you're an engineer like me, you'll end up in engineering. And as you can see here, the game has these nice tutorial pop-ups. I'll just close them because I'll tell you everything you need to know. So first of all, as you can see here, I can freely rotate my camera around the character by holding down the left mouse button and dragging the mouse around. And also I can make my character follow my point of view, my direction of view, by holding down the right button and dragging the view around. So this is how I can rotate him, and of course I can use the left and right arrow keys to rotate the character as well, and also A and D. Movement is straightforward. Use W and S to move forward and backward, or what is not taught to you by the tutorial is that you can also hold down both mouse buttons in order to run into the direction that you are looking. And in order to run into a different direction, just move the mouse around while you're holding down both mouse buttons. And you can also run if you hold down the shift key on your keyboard. Then you can run, and you can run indefinitely as long as you're not encumbered. Now that we have down the basic controls, and you can also use a combination of your mouse and your keyboard obviously, I'll give you a quick rundown of the interface. So first of all, we have this leveling bar up here, and you can see right now that you are an ensign, and that is basically level 0 in the game. And when you click this bar once, you will see the full progression that your character will undertake in Star Trek Online. And when you scroll down the list, you can see that the maximum level right now in the game is level 50. I should have said this earlier, but this is Star Trek Online with Season 6 that has come out recently. This is the end of July, and I think the video won't be up before the first week of August. So this is the current build. The game is 2.5 years old right now as I'm recording this. So you will see that after your first level up you will be called a Starfleet Lieutenant and you will be level 1. And then once every 10 levels you will be promoted to the next rank. So with level 10 you will become a Starfleet Lieutenant Commander, and then you will become a Starfleet Commander, and then you will become a Captain, and then you will become an Admiral, and so on and so forth. These two bars track your progress. The white one tracks how far you have advanced on your way to the next level, and the yellow one below that tracks how far you have advanced on your way to the next rank. So then you can see your character over here, where you can see a blue bar, which is your shield energy. So all characters in Star Trek Online are protected by a shield, a personal shield, and below that you will see your health. And shields do regenerate quite quickly. When you take damage, simply take cover for 3 seconds or so, and then your shield will quickly regenerate. With your health, this is quite a different story. This will also auto-regenerate, but I think you will need to break combat for much longer than 3 seconds, and also you will need to wait longer for this bar to refill. And if you need to refill it quickly and can't break combat, you can use a hypo spray, and we'll discuss that later on. So this is basically a health potion, a small health potion. Yeah, and below your character portrait you can also see, I'll rotate the camera a bit so you can see it more clearly, you will see buffs that affect you. So you can see here that I'm affected by 1 buff, and that's because I have stayed with the game for a long period of time. I'm called a veteran, and other players that join a team that I'm in will get a 5% bonus on all skill points they gain, so they will level more quickly when they're on a team with me. Then in the center of the screen up here we have a compass, which is supposed to tell us where we need to go next, and you can see that as I move my camera left and right. You can see this exclamation mark moving, and well, this compass is telling me that I should go to the chief engineer because that's my next mission objective. And you can see that also in my mission tracker. It says that I should report to the chief engineering officer to advance the mission Prelude to a Crisis. And also on this mini-map up here you can see there is this little orange circle down here that's highlighting the chief engineering officer down there. And we can see a larger version of this mini-map by clicking this button or pressing M on the keyboard. And here you can see main engineering, our position, and the position of the next mission objective, which is in the circle. I want to tell you that this only works most of the time. So not all mission objectives that you need to find are clearly marked and labeled in this way. As far as I know, the game designer has to manually tag objects in the game world to display these circles, and sometimes, well, the developers just forgot to place these circles in the game world. Sometimes it's also a mission objective to find a hidden object, and this compass also won't work all of the time. Most of the time mission objectives are structured very logically, and so it shouldn't be such a big problem to figure out where you need to go next. Around this minimap you have a lot of icons to access the several dialogues, and we'll quickly go through the most important dialogues. Oh, for example, I should have told you that you can zoom this map using your mouse wheel or clicking these buttons. And the first dialogue I want to show you is the character status window. And when I open that, this character status window goes up, and also my inventory opens. And I can bring up the character status window also by pressing U on the keyboard, the U key on the keyboard. And this is where you can see the stats of your character and also his biography, and you can equip this character with some items. And he comes equipped with a personal shield, and you might remember that our shield bar tells us that there are 100 points shield strength, and this is exactly what this tooltip tells us. The 100 shield capacity come from this personal shield, and if I take this away and place it in the inventory, you will notice that, well, there's no shield strength at all. So I'll just re-equip that and the shields are back up. And you can also see that we have equipped a weapon, which is a standard phaser pistol with a stun setting, and we have equipped 3 small hyper sprays, and we'll discuss these later on. And you can see over here that you cannot only edit your character but also the equipment of your starship, and here you can see phasers, photon torpedoes, engines, shields, and so on and so forth. So I'll close this window again, and the next button is the inventory, so you can bring up your inventory independently from the status window. And also this inventory has a second tab called assets, where you can see an overview of all the currency that you're carrying on this character, and right now we don't have any, and we will discuss currency sometime later. Below that we have the in-game mail, so where players can write each other messages, and I've got a notification from the auction house, which is called Exchange in this game, that I have sold an environmental suit to another player for 280 energy credits. And also I can start writing emails in this dialogue, and you can see from this address bar, in order to write an email you need to know the handle of another player. When you create a new Perfect World account, you get 2 identifiers. The first one is your login name, and you should keep that secret. The second is a display name, and this is what is called the handle. And this is a name that is visible on the forums and which is visible to other players. And this is your public name. One account that is identified by a public name may have several characters. So for example, on this account we have Kiteo. So if you want to write this character a mail, you would address an email to Kiteo at Rachel Garrett. And well, this is quite dumb because I'm writing a mail to myself, but I'll do it nevertheless to demonstrate you how the system works. And if we wait a few seconds, hopefully I'll see an email from myself in the mailbox. Okay, maybe this will need some more time. We'll go back on that and I'll demonstrate that this actually works. Then we have the social window, and you can bring that up by pressing O. And if you want to manage your friends list, then this is the place where you need to go. So you can find all of your friends in this list, and you can also accept and decline requests and remove friend. And you can also manage your ignore list, so these are all gold farmers, I guess. And also you can find a guild, which are called fleets in Star Trek Online, using some very elaborate filters. So for example, if you want to find a casual fleet, and you want to find someone who speaks Spanish, you only want to play with Gorn, and someone who lives in your time zone, you can search. It just takes a second to refresh the list. So these are all fleets that might be something for you, and well, you can read their recruiting messages and you can try to make contact with them over their website, for example. Now let's look after our email, and wow, we got an email from ourselves, from Kiteo at Rachel Garrett, so from the character Kiteo, from the account Rachel Garrett. So then the next button is the game menu, and you can also open the game menu by pressing escape on your keyboard, and you have several options here. First of all, you can rearrange the HUD, which are all the UI elements that you can see, so everything we have talked about previously. You can move your status, you can move the compass, and you can also reset everything by pressing Shift Escape. And I'll keep the interface as it is. And also there is a options menu, obviously, where you can modify a lot of game settings. You can scale the interface, you can select a larger mouse cursor, you can swap your mouse axes. You can set the individual audio channels, and I've disabled music and voice for this video, so there's no conflict between what I'm saying and what some NPCs might be saying, but actually there's not much voice work in Star Trek Online right now. Then you could try to configure a joystick or gamepad, but this does not work too well. You can configure voice chat. I would advise against using this voice chat, especially if you're a free-to-play user of the game. Then infrequently your voice chat will be interrupted by brief commercials, so just use Murmur to host voice over IP conferences with your team. And of course the video tab, which is the most interesting from a technical point of view. And here you can select a lot of options. Something that's quite interesting is this half resolution option. This will allow your graphics card to only render a quarter of the amount of pixels. You'll get some blur, but your interface will stay sharp and you will get much higher frame rate if you enable this option. So this might be a way for low-end systems to crank up some options to see some really nice lighting effects and stuff like that, but still reduce the load the graphics card has to handle. This is really nice, I think, for low-end machines. And either you can select some presets or you can, well, modify everything yourself, and you'll see me playing with maxed out settings on an NVIDIA GTX 460 card. Controls. You can change the feel and the behavior of your controls and the UI very detailed here. If you want to know about the individual options, then read the tooltips. These are really useful and will tell you exactly what these options do. I won't touch them right now. What I will touch are the keybinds, because I don't want to rotate when I press A and D, but I want to move left and right. And if I want to turn, I'll use the arrow keys on the keyboard. Okay, so now I can strafe left and right using A and D, and move forward and backward using W and S. Yeah, then there's the help menu. Actually, I don't use that too much, because everything you need to know you can look up on the forums, or you can use Google. Just if you have a really bad problem where you need a game master, you can try to contact a game master, but again, there are ways to resolve situations where you think you are stuck in a mission and where you think you are in a temporal causality loop where you have to play the same mission over and over and again and you are not able to finish it, or you are stuck somewhere. Just try to leave the mission. Try to leave the planet, go back to the world map, log out, wait half an hour, and then usually all instances are reset, and drop the mission, take it again, play it again, and you should do really fine. This is usually much faster than waiting for a game master. So you know there is a help and support menu, and actually you should try to get help from the nice people in the chat room or on the forums or somewhere on the web. So then we have some buttons down here. First is the microtransaction store, which was the Cryptic store, now is the Zen store. And if you have bought a special edition of Star Trek Online, which grants you some limited rewards, so for example some digital editions of the game come with a special starship, this is a place where you can reclaim it. So for example, I have unlocked the Constitution class USS Enterprise on this account, and here I could claim that starship. But of course you can spend real life currency in the store. And what I want to warn you about is, I think there's something like a starter pack on the store. Although it's called a starter pack, I would strongly advise against buying that. There it is, the Federation starter pack. Don't buy that. Everything that's in the starter pack you will get within the first 2 or 3 hours of regular gameplay. Keep your $3, you'll do fine. If you want to spend some money, what's really useful is spending some money on additional character slots. So, for example, these. because they will allow you to create new characters, to experiment with different career paths. So if you want to invest some money, do it here, but also just wait a bit, play the game for a week or so before you start spending money in it, because once you've spent some money in it, it's gone, it's bound to the game, and you can do a lot of other great stuff with $6. Yeah, next is the Dilithium store, and well, we'll discuss this, I think, sometime later when we discuss different currencies in the game. Dilithium is an in-game currency which can be traded against Zen points, which is a real life currency. Just so you know, with Dilithium you can buy some good gear. Actually, this is not the best gear that you can get in-game, but pretty darn good gear. The next button is the duty officer system, and you cannot access this right from the beginning because we need to level up in order to access this menu. Duty officers are basically the little people on your starship, so you can micromanage the lower officers on your starship and give them tasks. So for example, they should scan a nebula for you and they will generate some crafting materials for you that you do not have to collect on your own. So this is a really fun system. This is basically a game within a game, and we'll discuss it later on. Then we have the PvE queue, and you can use that until you are Lieutenant 5, so we will discuss this later. Then we have the fleet menu, which you cannot access unless you are part of a fleet. And again, fleets are groups of players. These are often known as guilds in other MMOs, and these players will try to play together and to help each other. We are not part of a fleet yet. And this arrow hides a lot of options that are as important as these other buttons. We have the Dilithium exchange, and this is a place where players can trade the real life currency Zen. Each Zen point is 1 US cent. You can trade Dilithium for Zen and vice versa. So right now you can buy 1 Zen point for 205 Dilithium crystals. Then we have this window called the R&D process, which keeps track of your crafting experience, and we'll discuss this later. Then we have the PvP queue, which is basically the same thing than the PvE queue, but obviously here you will enter matches where you can fight other players, and again you need to level up in order to use that. Later, when you have your own starship, you will be able to beam to that starship and run through the starship interior, and you can do that here. Then there are the bulletins. The bulletins are in-game news where the developers want to direct you to check out some new content or to play a new mission. By default, this will come up automatically when you log into the game and there's a new bulletin. It will be shown to you. Then we have this nice menu called notification settings, and you may have noticed that on occasion there's a yellow greenish text that's flying in here and is telling me something, and I'll disable that for gameplay announcements. And also I think I will disable help pop-ups. Okay, and last but not least, you have music player controls. So if you have one of some common music players installed, you can activate some UI to search through your music files. Then we have this mission tracker. Here you will find missions you have accepted, and you will see the objectives that belong to these missions. And right now we have the mission Prelude to a Crisis, and the next step is to report to the Chief Engineering Officer. Below that we have a button to pause this zone, and if I click that, you will notice that time has frozen, and if I were in combat I could use this extra time to issue some orders. And you should know this only works because I'm now alone in this instance, and if I'm playing with other players, of course I cannot pause the time. And now I'm unpausing the time, and slowly this time contingent will grow again up to 45 seconds. Then we can see down here there's a chat window, and not surprisingly you will see other people chatting in here, and you can configure what you want to see in this window. And you can see here that I have joined some custom channels, and these are account wide. I can color code these channels, and well, you can tick here which kind of system messages you want to see, and you can modify each of these tabs individually. So right now I have 3 tabs, but I could configure a new tab that will only log fleet messages, for example, or only inventory messages. And I can join and leave channels using this menu, and right now I'm subscribed to these 6 channels here. And also there are some chat options, and I'll uncheck filter profanity because we're all grown-ups here. I could also change the transparency of this window and so on and so forth. And I can also minimize the chat window if I do not want to use that. I can resize it. If I want to say something, I simply type it in here, press enter, and then I'll, well, say something. And by default I say something in the local instance. But of course I can change the scope of my chat. So I could change it from local to zone, which would affect all instances of the same map. So I will be able to communicate with all people that are currently on this map of the tutorial, even if I can't see them because they are in a separate instance of that map. Or I can select any of my channels, or if I am joining a fleet I'll have a channel for that fleet, or if I am on a team I can select to talk only to my team members. And there are some additional options. When I click this button here, I can use some emotes, for example. I can also configure voice chat and change notification settings as well, and can also see the status of my friends here. And something very important, you can set your status here and you can decide what your teaming mode is. Usually what I allow team invites is because by default you're open teaming, which means that each time you enter a map you will automatically team with other players that are on that map and taking that mission. And if you want to select with which other players you want to play missions, then you can select this option. Or if you want to solo everything in the game, you can select block team invite. So I will select the second option. Last but not least, we have this power bar at the bottom of the screen, and this is where you can trigger all the abilities of your character. Right now our character is equipped with a phaser, and we can see in this little box here that we have 2 weapon slots, or we can see the same weapon slots from the status window. I've pressed U to bring up the status window, and we can see that we have 2 slots where we can put in weapons, and these are the 2 we have here. And we can toggle between these weapons by pressing Y or pressing this button. And you can see here, because I have not slotted a weapon, I'll have only my hands as a weapon. I'll switch back to the phaser, and I can also decide if I want to holster my weapon or if I want to draw it. And you can also toggle this by pressing H, and this is only a cosmetic thing, so it does not matter if I draw my weapon or if I holster it. But on social zones I think you should holster your weapon. Not only for role-playing purposes. You have seen that depending on which weapon I choose, the first 3 slots in this power tray change. So right now I have a phaser beam, a stun beam, and I also have a palm strike. And if I change my weapon, the slots are changed. So I have a jab and I have a punch instead of the 2 attack modes of my phaser weapon. So in all weapons in Star Trek Online have these 2 attack modes, and a third palm strike to knock an enemy with your weapon in the face to make some room between you and your enemy if that enemy is close by. And here we have a cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which is an ability to revive an unconscious friend. And also we can see our hyposprays. And you can see small numbers on all of the slots on this power tray, and these correspond to the number keys on your keyboard. So in order to perform a palm strike, I can either press this button, click this button, or I simply press the 3 key on my keyboard. And I can rearrange the items on this power tray simply by holding down the right mouse button and dragging them. And usually I have this revive ability on the 0. And I can also expand this power tray by displaying 2 rows. By pressing this button here. And I'll drag my hyposprays to the second row. And you notice that here it's not simply 1, 2, 3 and 4, but C1, C2, C3. And this means that I need to press Control 1 in order to inject myself with a small hypo, which again will regenerate some hit points, and I can read the tooltips. It will regenerate 80 hit points of my total 200 hit points. And if we want to see a complete listing of all the abilities that are available to you, click this button or press P. And you can see that all the abilities we have available right now have been slotted to the power tray. And well, you should check back in from time to time, especially if you level up. You will gain new abilities, new powers. You should drag new powers to your power tray. And also you can lock the tray, and then you won't be able to move items around by holding down the right mouse button and dragging them. So this would prevent the power tray from being changed accidentally, but I will keep it as it is. And you can also see that not all abilities do relate to my character, but most of them actually have to do with the equipment I carry. So I only have a small hypo ability because I have small hypos equipped. If I take the small hypos away from the device slot of my character and back into my inventory, I will lose the option to use the small hypo. Of course, I only have a beam setting because I have a phaser equipped, and so on and so forth. So now we need to start playing, I guess.